What's up everyone? In today's video I'm sharing my custom Krusty Krab, so let's get into it. First, I want to say that this build was really inspired by the LEGO Ideas version submitted by EXE Sandbox. I actually started this build way back around September of 2020 when that project was denied. My thinking was that if LEGO wouldn't release one, I'd have to make one myself. So Sandbox's build is incredible, but I wanted to really downsize it because it's massive. If you've looked at his model, it's a whopping 48 studs wide. That's an entire base plate and a half, so building one that big just wasn't in the cards for me with the pieces I own. But as you all will see, I think this size works out to include everything I wanted to in a Krusty Krab. So looking at the outside, I've built the Krusty Krab sign using a ton of small round bricks to make the tall thin pole that it sits on. The pole is reinforced with some stick pieces threading through the bricks, but even with that, it's still the least sturdy aspect of the entire build. The clam shell on the top uses some hinge pieces and some snot plates to give the clam the curved top. For the windows of the Krusty Krab, I used big 6x5 clear window pane pieces, and for the doors, I wanted to be sure to give them gold handles as seen in the show. Looking towards the roof, I tried to make the flags as accurate as possible, and 4 out of 5 of them are, but as you can see, the one on the far left is different, as I couldn't figure out a good way to make the red and yellow T shape for that flag while keeping it the same size as the others. If you look closely on this build, you'll see that I used a mixture of reddish brown, dark brown, and even the old brown color of LEGO pieces because I think it adds just a bit more texture, and also makes it look a bit more run down because you know Mr. Krabs isn't paying for any roof repairs. Moving up to the very top, I made sure to include the chimney, and for that I just used a LEGO wheel as it had the right shape and even more detail than what I would have been able to make out of regular bricks. However, I do wish the wheel was the same blue color as the square base, just to make it a bit more accurate, and I also made the black weather vane antenna looking thing. On the back side of the model, you'll find a door leading outside, as well as the dumpster. To give the walls just a bit more visual appeal, I did mix in some blues, because in the show a lot of the walls are made out of metal panes of varying shades. I've completely built up the interior, and to access that, the middle section of the roof is removable. Inside you'll find Squidward working at his cash register boat, along with 2 tables for patrons to enjoy some delicious Krabby Patties. The floor is tiled off in green, with some studs here and there to provide some texture, as well as places to pose minifigures. Another element I knew I wanted to include was the kitchen's blue serving window, since Spongebob and Squidward have so many hilarious interactions through it. And above it, you'll find some tiles I used for the menu. One of the last things I built for the model was that interior section of roof that covers the kitchen and Mr. Krabs' office, and for a while I had thought about whether or not I even wanted to bother with it, but I'm glad that I did because I do think it adds quite a bit of detail to the inside. It's built on 2 plates that can each be removed to give access to the kitchen and Krabs' office. On the roof panels, I tried to include the details that we see in the show, like the metal pipe leading up to the chimney, as well as the assortment of boxes, bags, and barrels. However, I also took this chance to add in some Easter eggs for fun things, like the Flying Dutchman's hat and this pirate hat for the show's narrator. I've made the entire back wall able to swing out, giving much more space to see and set up displays. Inside, you'll find Spongebob grilling up some Krabby Patties in a fully loaded kitchen with details such as a fridge, grill, broom, and ketchup and mustard. Spongebob's hat is a custom design made out of 3 pieces, as LEGO never released an official hat for him. The doors of the model have those porthole windows, and to build those, I used some double-sided snot bricks, along with some round tiles with holes that I put clear studs into. The last section of the interior is Krabs' office, where you'll find his fancy red chair, along with his very first dollar, and I do have to say that it is really cramped in there. And it would have been nice to have a bit more space, but I didn't want to cut into the area of the kitchen or dining room anymore, so even though it's really tight, I do think it was necessary. I can also see now that I really need to get a different Krabs minifigure. Worn figures is one of the cons of buying things used, which is how I've gotten a lot of my collection. That's the same reason Sandy's head has been squashed into that makeshift helmet. She didn't come with the original, much better looking round one, so I had to make her one out of pieces that I did have. The door for Krabs' office is a bit different, as I wanted to make sure it had the anchor on it, which in this case doubles as a handle. The build for that anchor is pulled directly from the Titanic set. Squidward's cash register boat can easily pop out. It was one of the more challenging aspects of the build, as I really wanted to get the boat shape right, have Squidward be able to stand inside of it, and all the while keeping it pushed back to where it wasn't butting right up against the front doors. I had to try a lot of different versions, but in the end, I think it turned out pretty decent. Of course, not every detail is accurate with this build, but my philosophy for making customs is that as long as it keeps in step with the theming and core principles of the original, it's okay, even if it isn't exactly accurate. Like I mentioned briefly before, in the back you'll find the dumpster, probably most well known for the Sailor Mouth episode where Spongebob and Patrick walk around saying and keep getting in trouble for it. I tried to use colors that would make it look dirty and slimy, and it's big enough for Spongebob to fit inside of. To talk about challenges some more, the most difficult part of the entire build was the wider round ends of the Krusty Krab. I didn't have enough regular slope pieces to build it properly, and I don't use Bricklink for part orders because I think it's kind of fun to accept the limitations of the parts that you already have. So what I ended up doing was building those entire sections upside down with inverted slope pieces because I did have enough of those. So up into the very top, the rims of the Krusty Krab are built completely upside down, and it actually connects with the openings on the back side of those tall 1x2x3 slope pieces. And up to this point, I've never made use of those openings on those pieces, so being able to work that out was one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding experiences of the build. To flip things back around, right side up at the very top, I used some round bricks facing opposite directions connected with a Technic pin, which are able to flip things back around. And that is my Krusty Krab. This is one of the biggest customs I've ever made, and it took me forever with a lot of month-long gaps. But I'm glad that I finally finished it. If I had to guess, it may have around 700 or 800 pieces, but that could be totally off. Down in the comments, let me know your favorite moment or episode from SpongeBob. Mine has always been in the Bubble Buddy episode, where the mob is after Bubble Buddy, and the fish that was previously buried in the sand jumps out as an angel and says, "Bubble Buddy made me experience high tide," before floating away. That description does the joke no justice, so if there's any way that you haven't seen that episode yet, then go watch it. In my recent Themes That Ended Too Soon video, a ton of people have talked about wanting SpongeBob to return to LEGO, and at this point, there's no denying that it's one of the most successful television shows ever, let alone one of the most successful cartoons, so I think there's a good chance that LEGO will bring the theme back, especially since the show is still Nickelodeon's best and most aired program. And there's obviously an adult market for it too, since multiple LEGO Ideas projects have reached 10,000 supporters. If the theme does come back, I wouldn't be surprised if LEGO made a $150 to $200 UCS style of Krusty Krab, or maybe they'd go all out and make an entire block of Bikini Bottom that included other things like SpongeBob's house and Squidward's as well. Going along with your favorite moments, also be sure to tell me, which scenes from SpongeBob do you think would make the best LEGO sets? There's so many to choose from, and I think the theme is good enough that it could even become an evergreen licensed LEGO theme. Similar to Harry Potter and Jurassic World, I think SpongeBob has just as much potential as those. But anyways, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, as I'm constantly working on new LEGO videos, such as creations like this and other top 10s and top 5s. Also, for those of you wondering, I haven't forgotten about Goosebumps episode 2, and it should be out within the next week. Until next time, see you later.